used as a form of currency or exchange. The west coast of Africa, in what is today Ghana, has grim concrete reminders of this horrific period of history. In 1482, the Portuguese had built a trading post, a stone fortress by the Atlantic Ocean at Elmina, which they later used to hold slaves. Not all countries affected by slavery have such historic monuments of the European presence, like here in the Gambia. The beaches of what is the Gambia today are very popular tourist destination, but in days gone by, this was a part of West Africa known as Gambia. There were shipping ports and slave markets right along here. The Mandinka people of this part of the continent accounted for many slaves. This is a sales manifest from the 18th century, written by an Englishman called Robert Hazelhurst.
A cargo of 152 prime, healthy young Negroes just arrived in said ship from the river Gambia after a passage of 35 days. The Negroes from this part of the coast of Africa are well acquainted with the cultivation of rice and are naturally industrious. Conditions of sale. To approved purchasers, bonds payable the 1st of January 1786, and to those who make immediate payment in cash, rice, or any other produce, a proper discount will be made thereon.
The slaves acquired for sale were at times captured by their fellow Africans, for whom this was a business that was in large part under their control.
One cannot expect the European to mount expeditions in the hinterland of Africa to catch slave or to enslave people. It is coastal political groups that organize the expedition. Coastal people were armed with the latest technology, guns, and we were able to capture the neighbors. So you have this kind of economic system based on the use of lethal force to be able to provide the commodity needed for the system that couldn't work without the participation of local African coastal states.
Why did they do it?
It is really hard to say, but we have to remove morality from this kind of issue. What is the common expression for that? It is called a real politics, meaning there are no sentiments there. Coastal power use the power to seize people and sell them for the profit.
Were they fully aware of the kind of fate that might befall these Africans whom they had sold to Europeans?
As Africans, we have to face it. They knew that enslavement is not a garden party. Selling somebody, whatever you think about it, is not for the pleasure of that person. Even the treatment of war prisoners suggests that they knew what the fate of these people would be once they are sold.
But you know, this argument is often used by some non-African historians to almost in a way explain and to some extent excuse the actions of the Europeans and North Americans.
Yes, I'm very, very well aware of that.
And aren't you just bolstering that argument?
No, I'm not. I mean, we have to be true to ourselves. Europeans didn't launch war to capture Africans in the hinterland. They used the local system to have provision of people. And maybe they subvert it a little bit by providing weapons, by providing alcohol, by providing these symbols of power. But we have to clean our house, okay? And to really have a kind of a healing process, because, sorry to say that, but African contributed to the shipment of Africans in the Americas.
It should be pointed out that not all coastal Africans actively participated in the transatlantic slave trade, even though some coastal people made huge personal fortunes from this trade in human beings. Another reason why some Africans took part in the slave trade is because there was a fall in demand for African gold after huge reserves were found in Brazil in the 1690s. Along with coastal people, there were also two other main groups of Africans who collaborated with Europeans in the slave trade. And they were those who were either of mixed race or had become acculturated into European ways. One example is the community known as the Senhoras of Senegal. These were powerful women who owned houses and businesses and who played an important role in the local economy. They were the daughters of wealthy European merchants and African women. When occasion demands, local girls in the Ile de Gorée dress up to show visitors the ostentatious wealth these women were known to have displayed. Annie Juga is the deputy mayor of Gorée and is descended on both sides of her family from the Senhoras. As Annie shows me around Gorée, she tells me about her namesake, her great-great-great-great-aunt, Angelique Juga, who played a substantial role in the civic life of Gorée in the 1700s. Annie takes me to the house where Angelique Juga had lived. It's now owned by the church. How do you feel when you come to see this beautiful house of your senior ancestor?
It's touched me, of course, but everywhere in Gorée, but here especially, because I can think that one of my family, part of my family was in this house. And all the atmosphere of Gorée is like that.
You feel the weight of history
I feel
in the air.
I feel it. And not me only, everybody, I think, feel something when you go in Gorée Island. You feel something.
So is this a typical house that the Senhoras had? It's very grand.
The heart, the courtyard.
So there's a courtyard.
And around the principal rooms in the middle and bedrooms
on the
side.
They had relationships with the European settlers. Some of them were their mistresses and so on.
And wives. Real wife. And they did the economic power. They did it. If you see an old map of Gorée Island, you can see the name of the owner, and most of them are women. Signora.
Angelique Juga was born around the early 1700s. And I have to ask you that I've read that some of the Senhoras actually kept slaves themselves.
Surely some of them, but not all of them.
Did she?
I can't tell you that. I don't know. I really don't know. Perhaps yes, perhaps no.
Whether Angelique Juga did or did not keep slaves, there were plenty of mixed-raced Africans who did. The Ile de Gorée is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and these beautiful colonial houses have a prettiness which belies their controversial history. No cars are allowed on Gorée, and wandering around these alleys you come across children playing, artists selling their paintings in an open-air market, and a pelican taking a bath. It's hard to reconcile all this with the sinister transactions that went on just 5 generations ago. The mixing and interaction between Africans and Europeans happened from the very start, as soon as Europeans arrived in Cabo Verde. This Afro-Portuguese heritage in Cabo Verde is plain to see. And Portuguese is the official language. But the people's West African roots are still very much in evidence. The market of Sukapira in Praia seems to offer just about everything for sale, and it has a real West African quality to it. I find the same food I'd enjoyed with the Wolof women of Senegal, cebuche.
Oh, very nice. Delicious.
The transatlantic slave trade is a definitive part of African history. It created new realities on the ground, where many Africans suffered, yet others saw benefits.
A escravatura gera classes intermédias, entre senhores e escravos, há classes intermédias. Muitas vezes os escravos ascendem a posições importantes, como feitores, como intérpretes de língua. Muitos escravos são importantes e viajam nos navios. E os línguas têm muito poder. Alguns línguas depois pediram para ser nobres reconhecidos. Então, surge uma classe afro-portuguesa, aqui na ilha, que colaborava com a escravatura, sim, mas tinha interesses próprios, diferente dos senhores. Em 1546, essa gente que tinha nascido, os afro-portugueses, pedem para terem poder local, para estarem na Câmara juntamente com os brancos.
It is extremely difficult to imagine a situation in which everybody can pray to everybody around. And it is really what happened. People have to be suspicious of everybody around because you could end up being just a prey for somebody. What is the consequences of this? The consequences of is a rivalry and conflict that became endemic in different parts of the continent. There was no situation of peace anymore because you have to be ready either to flee or to fight. So this kind of constant uncertainty has significant impact on people's well-being.
Although some Africans were complicit in the acquisition of captives, the barbaric treatment and racism that slaves endured whilst awaiting transport across the Atlantic and at their destinations was perpetrated by the white slavers, as we see in the next episode. Also, what were the main reasons behind abolition, and what was the fate of freed African returnees?